Hello and welcome. I'm Omar Sallam and this is the Product.Live. As we always discuss, I like to get the perspectives of different guests about what is the true essence of product management, how they see it, and what is the actual realities of what it means to be a product manager. But most importantly, also, how does that fit our region in the MENA region? And how does that fit our culture and ways of working and so on, which also sometimes varies between different countries in our region overall. But it's nice to have this unique localized perspectives and so on. Our guest today is an extinguished product management leader operating in the KSA, but originally coming with an experience, a very heavy and very amazing experience from the UK and working across Europe. And I would like to welcome today Muhammed Zaulifqar. He is an amazing leader, and I'm really waiting to hear what he thinks about what is the true localized essence of product management. So welcome, Muhammad, and thank you so much for giving the time to be here at the Product.Live today.
No, my pleasure. Really excited to discuss all things product and MENA, and pleasure to be part of this amazing podcast. And discussing all things that are great in the world of MENA and product. So excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So please just give the listeners and viewers a bit of hint of your background, because of course I wasn't able to give you the full extent of what you deserve given your wide experience.
Sure. No, thank you. So as you can probably tell from my accent as well, this funny accent I have. I was born and raised in Manchester in the United Kingdom. And this is where my product management journey began. Started with an economics degree, didn't have any clue what product management was at that moment in time, didn't know what I was going to do with my career. I was just looking for some work experience after graduating, and then I came across this scheme from the Welsh government where they were trying to help fresh graduates build startups, and this was my first exposure to software engineers. I didn't even know software engineers existed at the time and what they did. So I spent some time at coding bootcamp. They gave me some projects to work on. The particular startup that they wanted us to focus on was around creating a voluntary management system for charities around the UK. So I used to spend a lot of time visiting charities, understand their pain points, understand the opportunity, understand how tech could help them. And I just loved the whole experience. And that's how really my journey in product management began. And then after that, I was just a fresh young graduate at the time, so I really wanted to broaden my horizons and gain exposure. So I ended up joining a big American company called Zebra Technologies, which you may have seen in a lot of supermarkets with their devices and warehouses. They scan, they have various scanning solutions. So I was there for around 2.5 years. Got huge exposure, worked with tons of different markets, US, across Europe, French, Italy, Germany, and then also a bit of work in APAC as well. So that was really great for my exposure to be part of a company of that size and scale. And then, I spent a bit of time with a few kind of small, medium-ish companies here based locally in the UK. Spent some time in EdTech and telco for a few years, and then eventually I found my way to Hunger Station and Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and this is where my journey in MENA began. Just under 3 years ago, I got a job and opportunity with Hunger Station, which, if you don't know, is a leading last mile delivery food provider here in KSA. I spent time there. I spent around a year and a half there, specifically focused on their vendor solutions, and that was an amazing experience. And then I ended up joining a startup called The Wake, which got acquired by Tabby recently. They're a bit like their vision was a bit like creating a trendy Revolut, the kind of digital wallet experience, but localized for the Saudi market. It recently got acquired by Tabby. And then, since I've been in Saudi Arabia, I've been really active trying to my best to help the local ecosystem. I've worked with around 60 startups, trained hundreds of product managers, and very trying my best to give back and support this Saudi as they go through this very exciting phase of transformation. So there's a bit of background about myself.
Yeah, like it's apparent the kind of experience and expertise and knowledge that you bring to the table. And I just want to salute you because also I'm an ex-delivery hero person, so like we are somehow related there, which is great. So let's jump right to it. And one of the classical questions that I always like to ask everyone before jumping into the big narrative, but like just what is your straightforward, simple definition of product management?
That's a really, really good question. Look, product management for me is essentially having your pulse on three things. It's having the pulse on what are the major pain points for your business, for your consumers, your users, what are the major opportunities, what's bothering them on a day-to-day basis, and really having your pulse close to that. So as time goes on, you really understand the sensitivities towards different problems and new problems that emerge. The other thing would be then having also a very close pulse check to the strategy of your business. What keeps your leaders up at night? What really bothers them? What is the direction that they want to go in? How do we want to differentiate? What areas do we want to be the best in? What areas would be okay being just okay? And how do we want to differentiate? And how we're going to win this market, and just having a very close pulse to that day to day as things evolve in a very potentially competitive landscape. And then the third thing I would say is just having a very close pulse to your key business and product metrics. You know, what is your churn rate looking like? What is your adoption looking like? How many active users do you have? What's your monthly recurring revenue looking like? Obviously, these kind of metrics kind of differ from one product to another, but having a very close pulse to those things. So that will give you like three very important data points to always bring meaningful conversations to the table as a product manager. So using these 3 points, you are there now to represent the needs of your users and your business, trying to convert that into meaningful product experiences. I think they've revolved for me personally around these three kind of data points. And the PM should be really, really close to these things, which will enable him to, empower the users and empower the business strategy, and turn that into reality through digital products. Essentially, that's essentially how I see product management.
Okay, perfect. So let me also ask you the same question from a different perspective, more related to like some definitions of product management. How do you see the product management as a discipline or the role of a product manager between the two areas of the problem space and the solution space? Like, what's the balance there?
Yeah, look, that's a really, really good question. So there is recently, like Lenny's newsletter, they did like a survey, and with product leaders to find out what were the top skills that they valued. And the top three skills were communication, execution, and product sense. And this is really, really interesting. What came out of this? So communication is quite an obvious number one, but then followed by execution. So the way I kind of see product management is we should see execute. We should really apply execution to discovery as well, which I think is a big gap in people's understanding of product management. For example, you should build your discovery capabilities in a way where you can validate something to like 60, 70, 80% confidence quite quickly and move things along. And this is, for me, an aspect of high quality execution as a product manager, that you're able to get these unknowns, get these open questions, and you're able to get the relevant data points, do the relevant user discovery, do the relevant alignment, and execute and deliver some clarity on this point, and being able to do this at speed. So this is what execution for me looks like. And then you can basically, once you get that alignment, you get that clarity, build your, whether it's like an Amazon style 1 to 6 page, or if it's a PRD, you get that sign off, and then you can quickly move to delivery and bringing this to life and reality. So yeah, a product manager should be able to execute effectively, regardless of if they're in the discovery phase or delivery phase. It needs to be both done at a speed that meets the needs of the business and the speed that they want to go at.
Mhm. Okay. And I want to double down on one thing that you said, one term, which is product sense.
Yes.
doubling down on it, how would you like have a clearer definition of what is a product sense? And I'm sorry that sometimes I do like combined questions, but
Yeah.
it's all related to the same point. So, what is a clear definition of product sense? And also, within myself as a product manager, as an IC, how do I detect this sense within me? How do I improve it? And how would I properly use it without it being turning into some form of bias that I am using it mistakenly or
That's a
not properly?
really, really, really good question. Very thought-provoking question. Okay, so look, for me, I think we as product managers, we have a habit sometimes of overcomplicating things. There are a whole kind of day-to-day interaction with different applications and different products serves as very similar lessons to be learned. For example, what I mean by this is, look, every single product that you use, or the vast majority of products that you use, in reality, 70 to 80% of them do the same thing. It's just contextualized into a particular industry and a particular target user segment that makes us think it's something else. But what I mean by specific, okay, how many products have some kind of homepage and they have some kind of banner and they have some kind of conversion like funnel, and how many of them have search, and how many have some kind of checkout, payment, post order experience, and we have some kind of concept of tagging and filtering and statuses, and then we have some kind of integrations just passing data back and forth, and then we have reports, and then we have dashboards. Like that's like 95% of products do all these kind of same functions. It's just what we do with these different aspects of the product is just contextualized for a particular user segment. But in reality, all these products are really do the same thing. It's just contextualized to be one thing in last mile delivery, another thing in edtech, but it's all really the same thing at the end of the day that you're doing. So as you get enough experience and exposure with product, and you really think about the anatomy of how a product is formed together, you really see that a lot of products really serve the same purpose. It's just targeted for another industry and another segment. And you'll see that once you get to a point enough maturity and you really have this depth of understanding, that when you do user discovery, you identify a user problem, you'll be able to think of a product experience almost instantly about how to solve this. Oh yeah, I just need to add X, Y, and Z to search, and I need to do this filtering. Oh, we need to add this to our, on this page, we need to add do this to the report, we need to do this, and we need to add this to post-load experience. And it just becomes second nature because you see that products and the anatomy of products is very similar from one application to another. And we have a tendency to unnecessarily complicate things as a product manager. So that's how I kind of see product sense.
Okay, so do you think that product sense is something related to being a specialized product manager at some discipline, like, for example, a fintech product manager or a growth product manager? Or is it more specific to I am this kind of product manager in this company, on this team, on that specific product? So is it like a product discipline specific or a product scope specific?
Yeah, for me, look, true product sense is agnostic to the industry.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
really just agnostic to the industry is really understanding a user pain point, and whatever the industry is completely irrelevant. If it's called, like for example, you've got a problem with search, it's called, you may be searching for one thing in one particular context, for example, social media, LinkedIn. And if we're searching in last mile delivery and food and in the world of Delivery Hero, we may be searching for something else. But the reality is a problem with search, and they've got a goal behind, an intent behind what they're searching for. And you as a product manager, you be able to see that regardless of the industry, regardless of what they're trying to search for, there's an intent and there's a goal behind the search that the user's trying to make. And it's having that understanding that it is a search problem, and these search problems exist in vast majority of applications. And it's knowing that this particular intent that they have is an issue with search. This issue exists from one product to another, and it's not like a specialized problem just within, for example, LinkedIn and social media, that we have this problem where I can't find, for example, on LinkedIn, I can't find Muhammed because this Muhammed is spelled with an Muhammed, is not an Mo Muhammad, so I can't find him. this is not a special problem just for social media, it's a problem with search. This search is a key attribute or a key aspect of, how products are put together. So it's having this understanding where you're able to detach yourself from the industry and being too overwhelmed. I just think about, okay, what is the intent and the goal of the user? And the intent and the goal will be very similar. You'll often find from one industry to another. It's just contextualized for a specific purpose. If it's one instance you're trying to find somebody to connect with, the other instance is you're trying to find, I don't know, pizza to order on a food delivery app. Search at the end of the day.
But that could put it also from another context or another perspective that someone might be specialized in search. They have led search teams in different companies and so on and so forth, right? So they would be they would have better product sense if they're working on any search related problem, or they work on like growth related problem, or to that sense. So can like, would I assume from that there is, or you might think that there is more value for specialized product managers in general than generalist product managers?
Yeah, look, this is a very good question, and it opens up a big debate whether you should be a specialized PM or a generalist PM. And it's really, like, I would say, personally, my personal recommendation is for the first 5 years of your career, get exposure, to different industries, get exposure to different aspects of the product. Maybe if it's B2B, B2C, get exposure. If you like, for example, if we talk about a last mile food delivery app, for example, get exposed to search and get exposure to household experience, get exposure to loyalty programs. Just broaden your horizons for 5 years. That's what my just learn and soak up as many different experiences as possible. And then it's for you at that moment in time to think about, okay, do I enjoy, do I want to work on different challenges? Do I want to work on something that's dynamic? Do I want to continue challenging myself in different areas, or do I enjoy kind of being specialized? Actually, I really enjoy loyalty programs. So going forward, I want to be a PM that specializes in loyalty programs because that's what I excel at and that's what I do great at. Look, it really depends on a case by case basis. But I would generally recommend PMs first 5 years of your career as you're trying to, get enter into product management, and then you're trying to hopefully get towards a senior level position. Just learn and expose yourself, and soak in as much learning as you can, and see things from different angles and learn about different aspects of products. Just educate yourself and grow your exposure and your horizons. And then really it's like on a case by case basis. Do you enjoy a specific domain, a specific area of a product? Is this really what you want to focus on, or do you actually just enjoy being a generalist? I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong answer. It's really on a case by case basis. But I would caution people against being stuck in not per se one domain, so to speak, but at least if they're going to be in one domain, but at least get a good, holistic, 180 to 240 degree view of maybe not 360, but at least a 180 to 240 degree view of industry. But if you're stuck in one industry and you're stuck in, for example, post-order experience or checkout, and this is what you've done for the last 5 years, this is what I think could hurt your product sense and limit your ways of thinking and your kind of growth personally and as a product manager.
So like trying to somehow adopt a hybrid model between generalism and being specialized in something could be a good play, and depending on like it also it's important for one to understand what would they enjoy and love working on, so they could actually craft and grow a reliable product sense and reliable expertise into how to lead teams and really innovate in that space, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, what you don't want to be is restricted to, basically your exposure in a very narrow industry, in a very narrow part of the product. And the moment you are challenged in your career or something outside of your scope, sometimes I've found product managers kind of struggle with critical thinking and adapting to a different user segment, adapting to a slightly different user problem, and trying to get their heads around different terminology that's specific to that industry. So I found product managers really struggle with these things. The ones that haven't really, gone out of their comfort zone and haven't really taken the time and investment to grow their horizons and seek new challenges. So that's the only thing I would caution against, especially early on in your career. But once you kind of gain that kind of exposure, you've kind of broadened your horizons, and you've gone out of your comfort zone slightly, then you may want to make a conscious decision that you want to specialize in a particular area.
Yeah. And I think also moving for like with everything AI happening right now and all of these advancements and so on, and like for one example, it widens the playground for building more personalized experiences and so on. So in order for people to be able to work on something like this, ideally, I think, in my opinion, they need to have a good understanding, hopefully some form of experience or an exposure to how to collect data set, clean them up, build them into platforms, and then use that into some API. So how to build all of that, and then how to like support how to build personalization into something like search or something like recommendations, and so on and so forth. How to leverage ML. So like acquiring these different bits and pieces, it actually comes from being exposed to different specialties and different problem spaces and different domains and so on, in order to be able to work on, like, as the technology evolves, it combines different areas together, right?
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. For sure. Especially look, Gen AI is shaking up is shaking up so many different industries right now. What engineers look like today will be very different to what they will look like in 2 years' time. Same thing with products, same thing with marketing, same thing with sales. It's impacting all of us. So for sure, we like being a specialized PM and not adapting to these changes around us. Yeah, it's going to potentially make you at a major competitive disadvantage within a couple of years. These are trends and things that are happening around us at such a speed that we have to all embrace and adopt. For sure, I can agree more.
Okay, perfect. So I like that the conversation is like making us come up with the different things to discuss and questions to discuss, but I want to circle back to the main reason why I wanted to have a discussion with you. And as I said at the beginning, in the intro, to understand more about what is a localized sense of product management, or a localized definition of product management. And I have seen you've been pretty vocal about this, especially with your experience in Saudi Arabia and the GCC generally, on what is the difference, the significant difference between how product management is being defined and evangelized from a Silicon Valley mindset, or like an idealistic mindset, a textbook mindset, versus the reality generally in the world, and then the reality in the Middle East, and specifically the GCC area generally. So start from wherever you want to start there, but the goal is that we want to understand and we want to pitch what does it mean to have this localized version of product management that is more suited to the dynamics of the MENA region.
Yeah, for sure. A really, really good question. So it's really important that when we say MENA is also very broad in sense that the different markets within MENA are all very different sometimes in terms of how you would play to get into these markets and how product management looks like in these markets. For example, Dubai, 90% expats, has got a very heavy Western influence in UAE and Dubai, and KSA is 65% Saudis, and is a very Eastern and Saudi heavy, culturally heavy market. So the dynamics are really, really different. It's also very different in terms of maturity and consumer trends and behaviors of how you would go to market, how you would do kind of discovery, and how you would build products, and different aspects of products is very different in both of the markets. And then even Misr is a completely different market, and Qatar is a completely different market, different dynamics. So I'm going to focus solely on Saudi, with Saudi kind of being the place I've been living and breathing for the last 3 years or so. So what makes Saudi interesting as from the market dynamics perspective is that like product management only really became popularized as a concept like 3 years ago. There's a lot of excitement about product management. A lot of evangelism has taken place with communities like Muntajat. It used to be formerly Product.Live Riyadh, but now there's Muntajat in Saudi. They were one of the probably the most prominent group or community evangelizing product management. And what you'll see is like a natural kind of curve like we're trying to go through right now. But even it happened in Europe and America, right? Maybe like 8 to 10 years ago, where it became quite popular and it became quite like Hollywood and quite dreamy and theoretical in nature. And it takes a while to get away from these theoretical concepts and turn and thinking into something that's more practical and deliverable. But it's kind of at that stage right now where people are excited to learn about user discovery, and we want to spend ages doing user discovery. And we want to build problem-driven roadmaps, and we want to use opportunity solution trees, and we want to use these cool ways of calculating priorities and building priority matrices, and we want to build, Kano models and these kind of things. So we're getting exposure to a lot of these different tools and concepts and theories in product management. And we want to use amplitude, and we want to do this, and we want to do that. So it's at a phase where it's very much kind of product management is serving frameworks and tools and trends. It's not at the point where it's serving what's the best interest of businesses and startups here at KSA. So what makes it quite interesting as well is the fact that that's one aspect of it in terms of the immaturity of within the KSA market. The other aspect that's quite interesting is that KSA is going through a huge transformation across all of its kind of major industries, but specifically around tech. So you have a lot of startups that need product managers to grow and scale, and they've got Series A or pre-Seeds or Series B funding, and they can't scale and grow because they don't have the product management resources and talent there to support them. So you look at the tech ecosystem, and we have a group of high potential startups called under a program called the Unicorn Program. If you go to speak to the founders of under these startups, the number one problem child that they'll have in their companies and org is product. The talent just isn't there. It's immature as a practice, but also they need product because they realize they're struggling to scale and hit the levels of valuations and the growth that they require. So those are two quite interesting dynamics. But then a third kind of aspect of it that makes it quite unique as well is a sense that it's not a simplistic problem to solve in the sense that, okay, let's maybe take the Dubai approach and let's import, great product managers like yourself, Omar, and bring you guys to Saudi. And that will fix everything. And unfortunately, it's not that simple either, because the nature of the KC market is very localized to the Saudi market. The Saudi market has very unique trends. There's certain universal laws of product management I used to believe that Saudi completely broke, and I had to adapt to it. So you really need a blend of product management expertise, and you also need a blend of people who understand the local market, and then bringing them together, and then also serving startups who need to grow and scale at a speed. So this is a real kind of conundrum and challenge that the Saudi market is facing right now.
Okay, so if you would to break it down into like it's a general problem, as you said, or not a problem, it's a challenge, right? How to make sure that we can deal and resolve with such things, and basically it's to unlock scalability generally, right? So if you would break it down into smaller pieces that needs to be interpreted somehow, whether from how the workforce actually should be more adequate or more qualified to do the required job, or from a leadership standpoint, how they can actually work on leveraging what product management could bring to the table in order to unlock these challenges. And when we're breaking down how to achieve that, how might we achieve that, right? What is the difference between what is being evangelized in definitions of product management and how to do the job on a global level, and what's different locally?
Okay, that's a really, really good question. I think one important aspect to really understand is a lot of these markets in Saudi are still very young and immature in nature. And this is a really, really important dimension to understand. So, a lot of startups in Saudi don't need multi-layered and high quality and well thought through and well versed strategies to succeed. Because they're really dealing in an immature market. Um, they're really dealing with a market that's emerging, and it's really kind of a lot of it's just the first mover advantage or the first mover that hits a half decent product can really win the market quite easily. For where we're at right now, this conversation may change in 5 years' time, and it will change if we talked about Hunger Station, Jahiz, and Kita as a very mature market. I'm talking about the vast majority of markets are very mature in nature. So what you really need in Saudi, you don't need a ton of product management and product leadership. You will bring that depth of strategic thinking and strategic discovery and help formulate strategies and how we can make product win the market. You do need aspects of that, but I think the heavily weighted focus needs to be more towards execution. Okay, you need a product leader for sure. You need somebody who can help formulate a product strategy that can feed the business goals and growth and so on and so forth for sure. But the extent to which you need that, I don't think it's as heavy as what you may need in more mature markets across Europe and America. What you really need is great executors um, and served and supported by a product leader. So what I mean by this is I personally, from like trial and error and working in these particular startups, a formula that works best for me was me as a product leader setting out the strategy, setting out the goals, helping the company to build a product strategy that serves their purpose and serves their goals. Not typically complicated to do because I'm dealing with often quite immature industries, and it's really just setting the foundations and the basic things. Now it's just a case of we must execute on this at speed and deliver and then we can unlock new funding rounds. It's quite easy. The economics are quite favourable as well to acquire customers to grow. It's just a case of executing and delivering. So I'm personally a big believer of whilst we have these limitations in terms of talent in the market, what I really value is having PMs at a certain stage in their career, where maybe they've got 4 to 5 years experience, they understand the foundations of product management, and I can just help them become 15 to 20% better. But what I get from these people is just what I really, really value is the hunger to learn, the excitement to be part of a startup. They want to stay late every evening because they're excited by the challenge and they're driven and they want to grow and they want to expose themselves. And I can just help them refine their product practices, maybe 15, 20%, help them become slightly better product managers. But these guys in return are super driven, super motivated, get their hands dirty and get things shipped. This is the kind of model I feel works best in Saudi right now. You do not need sophisticated product strategies to win the market. You really need people who have a strong bias to action and delivery and execution. As we're in quite an immature market, the quicker you ship products, the quicker you go to market, the more likely you would win and start gaining market share, start gaining traction. This is what hurts a lot of Saudi startups is the lack of discipline to basically have a simplified strategy, have a product you 1 to 5, execute, go. What ultimately happens from a leadership level is we have 10 priorities and we've gone to verticals that we want to dream of going into 2, 3 years' time. And we start talking about them, we start building here, start building for this new vertical, that new vertical, lack of focus, nothing gets done. So execution just completely stops and the company struggles to move. It's really just understanding that we're in immature industries. The value is going to be from executing, being the first in the market, first to take advantage of the market being immature. And the sooner the companies realize this, the sooner they will be able to take advantage and exploit quite favorable economic circumstances right now in Saudi.
Okay. Well, I think it's clear what you're expecting, and I like how you categorize what's happening in the Saudi ecosystem right now, comparable to like the rise of an a startup ecosystem that where delivery, iteration, and some form of experimentation is necessary. But like you need to move fast, you need to try different things fast and so on, and elaborate. And by time it will grow into a scale-up ecosystem and then a more sophisticated ecosystem where different product practices and different product strategies are required. And I think the also like the one of the main significant characteristics of what's happening in Saudi Arabia is that, as you said, the culture is very rich and it's very unique. As you said, not compared to at least the rest of the GCC area, which is like heavily influenced by the expat population and so on, which like gives the biggest opportunity for really establishing a new way of thinking on how to practice product management and how to make it more localized, or at least to explore new types of problems and new ways of solving them there that haven't been like documented or communicated in any other use cases or examples that are like widely spread worldwide as an example of how to apply one thing, which will always give the room for every step this ecosystem grows. It will give more room of discovering new ways and new practices to apply product management and so on. And I think it's up to us as a product management community generally in the Arab area to promote that more and to speak about that more, about our own unique perspectives of how to do this job and how to do it better and so on. I wanted to ask you, because we're almost out of time, and I wanted to ask you about a specific thing. So sometimes you give examples of like specific concepts, like when Marty Kagan says that, or when Teresa Torres says that, and so on, and how relevant or irrelevant it might be. And in the last book that Marty Kagan wrote, Transformed, right? He was talking about how to transition from any form of leadership in an organization into the product leadership model, right? And there was one of the use cases presented there for Al Musafir, which is a Saudi company operating in that ecosystem, which is that localized and so on. But he mentioned that as one of successful examples of how to transition into being like more product led and what being product led actually means and so on. So how would you reflect on having that example over there and like this kind of story use case or case study, sorry, given that there are many other concepts that are being evangelized on a very holistic and generic level that might still not fully apply in the realistic localized ecosystem that we're talking about?
Yeah, look, Abu Safir is a great example, but it's also slightly misleading example, to be honest, because their whole tech and product team was primarily based in Dubai. It wasn't like the HQ based in KSA or Riyadh, and their product and tech team was mainly here. So they had a lot of like external expertise based in Dubai. So it's not. It is like they've done an amazing. They've had some amazing achievements, and it's a company I do admire what they've achieved. But it's slightly misleading to attribute that to Saudi because it wasn't a company that formalized their product and tech leadership
Okay,
and built
yeah.
instruction in
Well, maybe yeah, maybe I misphrased it, but like again, I'm trying to relate generally to the GCC area. I understand there are some differences between what's happening in the UAE and KSA, of course. But do you see some connection there that maybe when the ecosystem in KSA scales a little bit more and it starts to take a different shape, then maybe some other concepts might be relevant then?
For sure, definitely. I do feel like the some concepts of product management will become more prominent amongst PMs. Like right now, the focus is very execution heavy. I think like more sophistication, like strategy and product sense and unit economics and knowing the profitability the cost of your product and how you can optimize it, sophistication around growth and experimentation. Those are areas for sure as we kind of go, I think you put it quite nicely, from a startup centric mindset to more of a scale up centric economy. For sure, I definitely see more prominence in those aspects.
Okay, perfect. So, like, my own conclusion there would be that, and to be honest, this is generally one thing that I'm always trying to talk about is whatever frameworks, whatever ways of working, and standards of how to do the job that are being written in books or like evangelized by different people and so on. For me, all of those are suggestions of how
Really,
to do the job, right? And then for every PM in whatever setup and whatever region, it's up to them to start saying, okay, that fits me, that doesn't fit me. I'm going to just take partially a piece of this and a bit of that. I'm going to come up with my own framework and my own way of working because I am understanding and absorbing all of these concepts and ideas and suggestions and so on, and I'm coming up with my own thing. So it's really important that, for me, that's my opinion, to understand that product management generally as a discipline, as a science and as an industry, is really fluid. And that's the base of doing product, is that you don't take anything for granted and just do it as it is, as it's being said, but it's up to you to come up with your own model and your own operating model that fits your needs. And that really applies to our region, that applies to our companies, our startups, and our different ecosystems, to understand that not everything that is being said, that's the way to do it, that's actually true, and this is the only way. There are other ways, and it's fine for us to learn from everyone, but then come up with our own version of product management or anything really in life, right? So yeah, that's my own conclusion from there. Do you have anything else to add to this or to?
no, I totally agree. I will only add one tiny nuance to that, but I totally agree as a principle and with the direction you're going in, for sure. Like product management is in nature just it's a role that requires critical thinking. It's not a codified role, job in terms of you do X, Y, Z. It's like you have those certain rules and codes and practices when it comes to like being a software engineer, being a designer, being a product analyst. You're kind of more narrow in your way of thinking and the way the rules and the playbook, so to have to do your job. Yes, there's areas of critical thinking for sure in those jobs, but product management is very broad in nature from a critical thinking perspective, which it's a challenge in itself to adapt and observe to, for sure. And I get asked sometimes, for example, what's the best user discovery method? It's just like depends on your user discovery goal. And sometimes you need interviews, sometimes you need A/B experiments, sometimes you need to launch a beta community, sometimes you need to do usability testing, sometimes it needs to be a combination of these and other things. Every different user discovery goal, depending on its criticality, depending on its complexity, it requires a different combination of things. It requires critical thinking to figure that out. The only thing I would say, I totally agree with your sentiment. The only thing I would add to that is, as a product manager, you have to be pragmatic and practical in nature. So what you don't want to do is take too many different frameworks. And this is where it goes back to serving the framework as opposed to serving your company and your users. I really have no preference for whatever framework there is. I will kill frameworks. I'll take my own frameworks. I'll steal good and bad bits of anything. But my number one goal and my number one priority is how can I serve the needs of my users and my business and the company I'm working for in the quickest and most efficient way possible. They're under pressure. The market's moving fast. Investors want X, Y, Z. The users are complaining. So how can I do my due diligence as a product manager, do discovery, but at a speed and in a way where I can unlock product capabilities for the business? So I need to, whatever framework or whatever I develop, has to be done in a practical and pragmatic way. And this is unfortunately what hurts the image of product management in Saudi in particular. We're in this phase where we're still serving frameworks and we're using these cool frameworks and we're excited because we learn about them for the first time, Tracer Torres, Autocaving, Airbnb, whatever it may be. And we just want to try them all. And this is the cool way and the right way to do product management. There really isn't no right and wrong way, but just be practical and pragmatic in nature. Whatever you do, make sure it's the quickest and most efficient way and the most effective way to serve the needs of your users and your leadership's kind of in your business key metrics and your product metrics and growing those. That's all I would kind of add on to that. Be practical and pragmatic in nature, not theoretical.
Awesome. Amazing. So with that, we end this episode being wary of time, and that's my mistake because I was late at the beginning. But I hope that there will be more opportunity for us to discuss even more ideas. So thank you so much for giving the time to do this conversation. And I would encourage everyone to follow you on LinkedIn to know more about your ideas about like how some concepts and frameworks might not fit our needs and what might be the fit. So I think that's a really important thing to get an insight to. So thank you everyone for following this episode. If you have more questions to Muhammad, please put them in the comments or reach out to him directly on LinkedIn. He's very responsive and helpful. And if you have any suggestions to future guests, please let us know also in the comments. And thank you so much for all our subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow on LinkedIn and TikTok and Spotify, and stay tuned for the Product Live. Thank you.